It's Friday, and once again, I have a movie recommendation for you. So it's Mark Monlux's Friday night movie recommendation, and this week I'm going to suggest 1978's Magic, directed by Richard Attenborough. Yeah, Richard Attenborough. Now you might know him from Jurassic Park or maybe The Great Escape, but he was also a director, and he did great behind the lens. And this was one of the movies that he was pretty well known for, certainly a success. It came out in 1978. Let's talk about 1978. Shadow Dancing by Andy Gibb was #1 on the Billboard Top 100s. The Susan B. Anthony $1 coin came out. Gold, for the first time ever, reached $200 an ounce. Annie Hall won 4 Oscars. And, interesting tidbit, Garfield first appeared in newspapers in 1978. So we've talked about 1978 a lot. There are a lot of good movies came out in 1978. Anyway, so the reason I like this film, first of all, Anthony Hopkins, who you know from Silence of the Lambs and have seen a lot of his later career work. This was one of his earlier films, and he is super creepy in it. He's basically a magician, and his first time going up on the stage is he studied for years to do this big reveal, and he just crashes and burns. So his agent says, "You gotta come up with a gimmick." So he does. Now his agent is played by Burgess Meredith, and it's perfect casting for Burgess Meredith. He wanted to make himself look like this agent that he knew in real life, so he even shaved the top of his head to make and dressed like this guy and spoke like him to really get this character across. He did a superb job. Anyway, so Anthony Hopkins comes back as, this time the guy's gimmick is he does magic, but he does it with a ventriloquist dummy. And along the way, he re-encounters an old love interest, Anne Margaret. Oh man, Anne Margaret, talk about some hot stuff. Especially, you just gotta enjoy her work on these films. Oh, Anne Margaret. Anyway, so you got Richard Attenborough behind the lens. You got Anthony Hopkins in front of the lens. We got Anne Margaret and Burgess Meredith, and then the star of the movie is the dummy, Fats. Fats is a really unique ventriloquist dummy, and to make it work, they actually brought in a ventriloquist named Dennis Allwood. Dennis Allwood, like a lot of kids, you have to be like throwing your voice and doing stuff when you're a kid, like doing it when you're like 10 or 11 to really be good at it. At least that's what he learned from his friend Edgar Bergen. Edgar Bergen was like the ventriloquist. I mean, the #1 guy. And these two guys became friends because it just happened they both lived in Hollywood and in the same town. He knew this man was his idol, so one day he pretty much just walked up, started talking to Charlie, his dummy, rather than him, and they became friends. And to the point where they would, at one point, there was a commercial or something, and Burgess Meredith needed someone to hold the other dummy. He had 2 dummies. He needed someone to hold and operate the other dummy. And he also had a little bit of a cold, so he asked Dennis to voice it in. He would tape over later on, and he did. But anyway, Dennis was a great ventriloquist, and most ventriloquists make their own dummies. And he was a very good ventriloquist, a dummy maker. This puppet, Fats, has multiple controls, not just the eyes going back and forth and the jaw, but he could do the eyebrows, could move independently. The eyelids could come down independent of the eyes. The eyes had complete movement and control. Not only did the lower part of the mouth work, but the upper lip could roll back up. The amount of expressions that could come across on this puppet were really eerie. Not only that, but the teeth almost looked like dentally done teeth. They're not just wooden block teeth. And it was all of this came from a book that was very popular, a book called Magic. And the mannequin, the puppet in the book was never described. It was just not cute. And so when Dennis created this thing, he showed it to the writer, and the writer says, "Oh wow, that's Fats." Anyway, so Anthony Hopkins appears with this puppet to do his magic, and he's a huge success. But we all know there's sometimes, something loose and rattling around in the brain of a ventriloquist, and that comes out in this movie. So it's pretty much what you expect, but it's got such wonderful actors and this not so charming puppet. To me, it's just a wonderful film. And I was up, I think I was like 14 when this movie came out, so I was very, and I certainly was very much Edgar Bergen fan, and I just really got into this film. Plus, I was a big fan of Burgess Meredith. Who doesn't like Anne and Margaret? Okay. Anyway, I've gone on enough about this film, Anna and Margaret. So that's my recommendation, and you can watch it on Canopy, spelled with a K. Canopy is your local library service where you can stream both television and movies. It's free. All you need is a library card and your zip code, and you're pretty much in. So, once again, my movie recommendation this Friday, 1978's Magic.